Good evening, everybody. So a few weeks ago, or a month or so ago, I was at a conference here in town, and it was attended mostly by people from other parts of the country. A lot of people from the coasts, actually. I feel like I need to move this a little. Maybe that's better. Maybe I'll just whisper. I feel like I don't want to keep going with that hum. Do you hear it too? Okay, thanks. Okay. So like I was saying, I was at this conference, and there were people from all around the country, a lot of folks from the coasts, and in between sessions I'd talk with folks, and people kept saying what a great city this is, how much they enjoyed being here and exploring it, and how great it must be to live here. And it's true, I have to agree. I really like living here. I love the lakes and the parks, and I love the people and the vibrant art scene. And I really have to admit that I like the kind of reasonable cost of living, especially compared to the coasts. But I also have to admit and cannot ignore that we've got some tough problems facing our Twin Cities region. And as many of you probably know, we have some of the worst race-based disparities in the country. In general, people of color who live in the Twin Cities are less likely to experience the same benefits of living here as white people do, across a variety of well-being indicators, from health to income, education to employment. And this matters right now to people today in the present moment, and it also matters as we look into the future. The Metropolitan Council recently released a vision for the next 30 years for the Twin Cities region called Thrive MSP 2040. And as they look out, they highlight that the demographics of our region are changing. We're becoming more diverse as a Twin Cities population. By 2040, approximately 40% of the Twin Cities population will be people of color. That's up from 24% a few years ago in 2010. And the Met Council notes that if we don't change our course and deal with these race-based disparities, that's going to have a huge impact on the health of the region for everybody, because we're all bound together. And we're facing these disparities at a time when we've got access to amazing new technologies that let us visualize information and create and deliver and access resources and connect with one another in all kinds of new, interesting, variety of ways. I work with technology and with people who make technology. I also work with people who are working to move the needle on these race-based disparities. And over the last few years, I've been asking myself, can technology, and in particular civic technologies, make our region a better place to live for everyone? Now, chances are you haven't heard of this term, civic technology, before, and that's okay. It's a relatively new term. It's just kind of been coming around in the last few years. But the Knight Foundation actually did some work and kind of surveying of the field, and I'm going to riff on some of the themes that they saw and describe it this way. Civic technology are tools that, let me back up, that shape the way that we can access public information and services, the ways that we can engage with decision makers and mobilize around causes that we care about, fundraise for these causes, the ways that we can connect with one another to share resources and ideas and skills, and the ways that we can visualize the present, where we are right now, and also imagine possible futures for where we could head. Oops. So like I said, this is a new realm, but it's blossoming into a pretty distinct field with a lot of exciting directions. And civic technology is made in a few different ways. One way is through competitions. Governments and foundations support these competitions to spur the development of new apps and data visualizations. New companies are popping up as people see opportunities for business development in this space. And it's also a grassroots effort too. So programmers and designers will spend time outside of their day jobs in the evenings and weekends working on projects that aim to have public benefit. Now this is happening all around the country and even globally as well. But tonight I want to keep it local and talk about what's happening here in the Twin Cities, because there's a lot happening here. So just in the last year, 4 of our 7 metro area counties released their geospatial data. I'll get boring here for a second. So data that can be mapped, basically, for free and open use. And that's important because that means that more people, individuals, companies, governments, nonprofits can use that data for analysis, for decision making, even to create new tools. The last few years have also seen the creation of some new social enterprises. Actually, the founder of Omg Transit is here tonight. And yay! Omg Transit is a mobile and a web app that brings together data about real-time bus locations, the locations of car-sharing vehicles and nice ride bikes, all into one place. Very awesome. And also TuLoco, which lets you browse businesses and arts and culture venues and connect with these organizations that are owned by people of color here in Minneapolis and St. Paul. A few years ago, or a year and a half ago or so, Open Twin Cities started up. And this is a volunteer-driven organization that's become kind of the hub for individuals who are passionate about open data and open government. And they host things like Hack for Min in collaboration with the state of Minnesota just a few weeks ago. And this weekend-long hackathon brought together almost 100 designers and developers and all kinds of passionate people to work on civic tech and service design projects. And I've been working with my collaborators over at the Center for Urban and Regional Affairs for the last 9 months or so on a project called CURA Tech, where we've been collaborating with diverse community members to explore the question of how can technology strengthen communities? And in particular, how can it increase access to jobs and education, transportation, housing, health resources, and engagement with decision makers? And it's been exciting to see the interests, the range of interests that people have for what civic technology could and can and should do. Everything from making the city council process in Minneapolis easier to understand and engage with, be able to have better communications with elected officials, better ways to engage in transit planning, ways for homeless youth or youth who are at risk of experiencing homelessness to connect with help and other resources, and a number of other goals. So this question, does civic technology offer an opportunity to create a more equitable future for our region? To be honest with you, I think in some ways it's too soon to tell. This is such a new space. But I do feel like there's a lot of potential. And so I want to describe a few specific projects that are going on right now, that both to show you kind of the range of what civic technology is, and also to highlight a few key things that we're learning. I'll start here with this Environmental Justice Atlas that's being created by the Center for Earth, Energy, and Democracy, or SEED. And SEED, and in particular, Dr. Cecilia Martinez, are working in collaboration with technologists from the University of Minnesota to create this tool that brings together information from a variety of sources, but about the physical environment. So things like the condition of housing, which is city data, land use data from the county, and then sites, environmental sites that are monitored by the Pollution Control Agency, a state agency. Brings it all together into this one map for Minneapolis and St. Paul. You can choose your layers and turn things on and off. You can zoom in to particular sites. This actually isn't very far from where we are tonight. You can click on a site and get more information from the Pollution Control Agency's database. You can also zoom out and layer in demographic information for vulnerable populations. Here, for example, we're looking at children of color under the age of 5. Now, children of color, especially African American and American Indian children, are more likely than their white peers to have asthma. And asthma attacks can be triggered by things like air pollution from highways or from other industrial land uses. So being able to put all of this information together in one place creates a powerful tool for analysis, for decision making, for conversation. And SEED is creating this tool so that community members can use this in conversation with their decision makers, their work with, and in their work. And interestingly, actually, government staff have found this tool to be useful as well, and are finding that they're able to use it in conversations with their constituents and in their own decision-making processes inside of government. Now, public data is key to this tool, right? I mean, it's all kind of public information that's coming together to build this map. But I think what's really important to highlight about this Environmental Justice Atlas is the way that SEED developed the tool. So they determined which layers belong in this atlas and how those data layers should be labeled in conversation with diverse community members from across the Twin Cities. And in fact, in January, there was a presentation of this tool, and community members suggested another dozen or so layers that they'd like to see and they feel like belong in this atlas. Now, not all of these data layers these data sets are even actually collected or exist as a data set, and not all of them are publicly available. But that conversation of what belongs here, what matters to environmental health and the health of people is hugely important. SEED also is planning a series of workshops that will allow community members to take this, learn how to use it, and look and see, does what you see and experience in your neighborhoods, the places you live and work, match with the data that you see in this map, this public data? And if not, what else belongs here? Where are the gaps? What's missing? And this brings me to a really important point about open data, public data, is that while it's incredibly important to build tools like this, it's also imperfect. And this process of putting it out there, though, so that people can look at it, respond to it, create with it, is incredibly important to making it better. So data is imperfect, but it can be better. And that transparency is a huge piece. There it is. Okay. Slides are imperfect, too. The next couple of projects are in their early stages. We're going to cross the river to St. Paul for a minute. There's a group of teens who are working at the Science Museum of Minnesota, and they've identified a problem that they really want to address, and that's that they're seeing that young people of color, like them, don't have access to jobs that move them and help them kind of explore and move towards professional careers. And so the teen tech crew at the Science Museum has been thinking about how to address this. Now, actually, there are a number of jobs that do exist. Like the city of St. Paul actually has a program called Right Track that aims to fill this gap and connects young people with employers. But what teen tech crew members were observing through their experience with their peers and then through interviews and conversations with young people at libraries and at schools is that youth don't know that these jobs exist. And then when they do find out that they exist, they don't know how to access them, what to do to move into these jobs, apply for them, get ready to apply, all these things. So there's a gap in information. So the members of the teen tech crew are spending the summer and this time right now to continue researching this problem, and they're building prototypes that they're testing with other young people with the goal of creating a web-based tool that they can use in their work with teens in St. Paul. Similarly, or kind of related project, David Kang, who is a media designer, is working with a team that he's assembled of other Asian American artists and public health advocates to look at the way that public health information is designed and delivered, especially to people with limited English, who speak limited English. And this summer, they're collaborating with community-based organizations and public health experts to specifically focus on communicating information about hepatitis B to Asian American people who speak limited English. So they're working to kind of close this information gap, especially around public health information. And throughout the process, they'll be prototyping these. This is just an early prototype of a tool, but they're thinking about different kinds of communication methods, maybe printed things, maybe PSAs, other kinds of communication tools. And we'll be testing them with community members to see, is this working? Is this working better? What will make this work better? These projects and others like them point out a really important point, that who's involved in creating civic technology and when matters, and it matters critically. Now, probably when you hear civic technology, you think that's something that coders do or programmers do, but it's not. It's social entrepreneurs, designers, artists, community organizers. They're all involved in creating civic technology as well and need to be involved in creating it. Similarly, people with a variety of perspectives, people with different racial perspectives, people from low-income backgrounds, young people, older people, all are a part of and need to be a part of creating civic technology. And not just at the end when there's something to be, something done and ready to be used, but throughout to test things, make them better, and especially up front when the needs that civic technology can address are being identified and when possible solutions are being imagined. The last project I want to show focuses on engagement in community processes and community decision making. Across the country, people are looking at new technologies as a way to kind of engage people more in public decision-making processes. Things like web-based tools, Twitter, text messaging, as ways of being able to contribute your ideas to maybe a public process. And people are asking, can these new tools engage a broader range of voices and historically underrepresented or disenfranchised voices? Up on the north side of Minneapolis, Juxtaposition Arts is taking a kind of low-tech approach to this problem and this question. And this is Roger Cummings and Roxanne O'Brien, who are standing with a mobile engagement unit. So Juxtaposition Arts is an art and design center and a social enterprise that employs young artists and designers, many of them Northside residents. And this summer they've been creating a fleet of these bikes, each one different. In fact, this is in the room just next door if you happen to see it. So this summer, young artists and community organizers are pedaling these bikes around West Broadway, North Minneapolis neighborhoods, and even here downtown. And they can pull out dominoes, cards, turn on some music, turn on some bubbles, and create a really different vibe to the typical community meeting. And these carts become a space for conversation about what's going on in the neighborhood. They can be at bus stops, they can be at parks, at parking lots, sidewalks, any place where people are, right? And in addition to conversation, people can fill out a survey that gives them a chance to answer key questions about a project that's going on. Not just your typical survey, but an illustrated one that's almost more like a zine. Or you can just have a conversation with an artist or a community organizer, and they'll take notes on the whiteboard surface of the cart or audio record it. And then those ideas and perspectives will shape pilot projects that Juxta artists and community partners are working on for West Broadway and the surrounding neighborhoods. This highlights the last point that I wanted to highlight or elevate is that civic technologies aren't always digital. They're not just apps, they're not just interactive data visualizations, but they can be low-tech and they can be tangible. They're the right tool for the job, and they help facilitate an innovative means of accomplishing a civic goal. So civic technologies are, they create this new opportunity for us to ask questions and understand our community, for us to create new solutions to problems that we're facing. And I do think that there's a lot of potential for civic technologies to help us in our region and our communities to move towards a future where well-being is more equitably shared, especially when diverse voices and perspectives and skills are engaged throughout the projects. And when these projects are rooted in local communities of color, too. And you can probably tell from these examples I showed, these projects are about the tools, right? But they're also about the process of making the tools. My friend Bill Bushy from Open Twin Cities says that the process of making civic technology is itself a form of democratic participation. And that's a process that I'd invite you all to join in and bring your passions and your skills and your expertise. And for me personally, I've found that a really good place to start is by listening. Because after all, I think that making the space and the intention to share perspectives is one of the most fundamental civic technologies that we have. Thank you.